Good afternoon, everybody. Going to start welcoming you here to Gov School today. We're going to be talking about the federal government and focusing on federal. I appreciate you attending. This is live on YouTube. So if you're over on YouTube, please note that if you do type in a question, we're not able to answer it there. We are also live on Zoom. And if you have questions, you can pop there. I would ask today that you maintain your mute status when you first come into the room. You are on mute. That's designed on purpose just for primary background noise. Although I would encourage you to ask questions. And as we go along, you can unmute yourself and ask those questions. Be aware that this is a live session on YouTube. So anything that you speak will be recorded, and we have that there to make sure that everybody can enjoy afterwards. It will be available immediately after in a recorded version on YouTube Live. Okay, I'll be popping in just to make sure that you are muted, and then if you do want to unmute yourself, you can just raise your hand, and I will get to that, and we'll give everybody just a couple of minutes as they come into the room. Okay. Just a few minutes here. Apologize if you hear some dripping in the background today. It's raining pretty hard here in Atlanta, and we got a lot of rain here, which is good for the getting the spring going here, hopefully. I always give everybody just a couple of minutes to come into the room. Hope everybody is having a happy Thursday. I think today maybe is the last Thursday in January. January's already moving fast. Always does. So there we go. It looks like it's slowed down a little bit. I'll pop over there. If you do happen to get knocked out of the room for any reason, just come back, click on that link, and you should be able to get back in, and I'll get you into the room as quickly as possible. I like to use the Zoom platform so that you can ask questions, and your chat in the chat box, it will be open here. And so you can do that. Please be aware for privacy reasons, this is a recorded version. We also typically do not reach out to you in the chat, but everybody has that capacity to discuss with each other. And so I do make that available to you in this room, but just be aware for your privacy so that you can maintain that privacy. You also don't request any kind of money, things like that. It's not, so be careful about that. You're in a public chat room. So welcome here to Gov School. This is one of the first sessions I've done this year. We took a little bit of a hiatus as we go along, and we'll ramp back up over the next next week or two. In fact, I'll have a class tomorrow about local government. Today we're going to focus in on federal, and then on Tuesday we're going to invite back one of my favorite speakers. She's going to come to us, Dr. Cynthia Harper, and she's going to talk to us about communication methods and how to really communicate with the local, state, and federal agencies, the government contractors out there, but as well as primes. Make sure that you're reaching out in the right way. First question I get after you realize you have to have a capability statement is then the question comes, what do I do with this thing? And we're going to show you to make sure you can use it effectively, and you are and according to the way the government's actually required to use it. And she's going to share that with you on next Tuesday. I think we have that at 4 o'clock next Tuesday. Watch that on Gov School. You'll get notified. She's one of our most popular speakers. We always have a full room, and she just does a great job. I'm not sure she's with us today, but she is. You can pop in and say hello. But she just is a really good talent about how to communicate effectively. But today, what I'm going to do is talk to you about federal government agencies. This is the time of year that it's important that you step in, make sure you got everything set up correctly, that nothing catches you at the last minute when you're actually bidding on contracting. And some of you are brand new to this, and I want to make sure that you've got your SAM settings set up correctly. SAM is the System for Award Management at the federal government. It's kind of like the accounts payable system. No check gets cut without you being registered properly in SAM. So therefore, you really have to be registered there before you can even bid. And a lot of times we go through, we set up the registration, we have an active ID or UEI, unique identifier number. And we don't really went through and actually got ourselves registered correctly. In addition, you may also want to do business with the Defense Department, or some sort of disaster spending. You always have to make sure you have that cage code, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Our system itself, we serve the business to government marketplace. Our primary customer is you. In fact, we have no government customers. We are not a platform where governments publish exclusively. That's not our system. Everybody does publish on with us, kind of like a newspaper, though. It's a broadcasting system. And so we do that in order to keep a hands-off relationship so that you can make sure you get access. You're not sitting and waiting for government to actually publish something. We're going out there aggressively collecting it. And it's a whole different process of aggregation. We serve, I need to update this. This is a little bit older. We're actually going to pass 125,000 contractors hopefully over the weekend. So we're hitting a new record level of contractors using our system. It's completely voluntary, and make sure that, in fact, I'll go ahead and do that so I don't forget that next time. I'll add that. And so we, with the submission of providing research to you, our primary objective is putting in place in front of you research from local, state, and federal agencies at all stages of the contracting period, from pre-solicitation planning stages when they're talking about in budgets. A lot of our state legislators meeting right now in order to determine how they could spend money come July 1. Or some local governments as well going to the July 1 budget. Federal government, of course, has an October 1, and they're actively engaged right now in procurement. But we stay with that from pre-solicitation to the active bids and then to the award stage, so that you can actually see who's winning, what price, and sort of potentially partner with someone and going back in there and tapping into that as potentially as a subcontractor, explaining that to you. And so we all phases of the bidding process we're monitoring for you. In addition, we seek to solve this fragmentation problem. With the big problem that we have, the business problem, is that there's 140,000 different locations, and third-party systems are aggravating that even further. And so you can all over the place, instead of you having to pay all these individual locations to get access, we provide a portal for that. And that's not only at the international level, the national, but also subnational, local, business to business. So if you are wanting to broadcast, for example, that you're looking for a partner or something, you're able to do that. So we have this mechanism in place to allow you to engage with each other on business opportunities. This is created by a home rule philosophy in the United States. And that is that we like to make our decisions locally, as localized as possible. And you see that the federal government typically doesn't. We maybe provide money to local and state, but they don't really get engaged so much with the actual procurement process. The state wants to decide how they're going to spend its own money. Local governments want to decide how they're going to spend their money. So that fragmentation causes, and that local home rule philosophy causes a business problem, and we seek to step in and solve that. Our services itself, our primary objective, as we're still letting people in the room, is aggregation and publication information, pulling together about 5,000 calls for bids and proposals. Today, we've actually started also including grants. Grants have themselves become a more popular tool for businesses. And today alone, we added some 7,000 grants already. So this is a constant flow of information, 5,000 new calls for bids and proposals. And so it's throughout the year, about 1.5 million total listings. Our primary objective is not only to help you find, but also help you learn how to win it. And we do that through microeducation, these webinars like we're doing today, talking about various topics. Today, we're talking specifically about federal government. And then we also step in and help you win their platform, helping you design your capability statement, making sure you have it laid out correctly for each level of government you're seeking to attract. We also go in and help you with writing, RFP writing, and an experiential process where we are not only trying to hold you as a RFP writing client, but we're teaching you how to do it yourself so that you can then step out and use your funds effectively. We provide the information to you in a number of different ways, including through our app, Specialized Reach, so you can tap into that. If you don't have the app now, please download that in the App Store or the Google Play Store. And it really takes away the concept of time, so you don't have to sit and wait for that daily alert. You tap on it any time of the day. It's going to show you the matches as they appear. And as you know, we're adding between 2 and 3 bids or postings every minute. So it's a constant flow, and the sooner you find that information, the better. Our coverage now is in 74 countries. And so you'll find that we are aggressively collecting bids all over the world that can meet you in some way. Now switching specifically though to the federal government, one part of the federal government you're going to learn that you have to be aware of right away. You will constantly see reference to FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations. And acquisition.gov is a place where these documents are found. And all federal government procurement, or any dollar that's associated with the federal government, it will fall under FAR, meaning that the contracting officers won't do anything that it's not spelled specifically out for you within the system. So you'll see reference to that in a lot of different ways. Oftentimes it'll say FAR, say 15, number 2, okay? And then you would step in to, and then go in and here's where we actually talk about how they're going to receive solicitations. And this is the exact layout. So the federal government expects you, whenever they reference that you to be knowledgeable about those particular provisions. It's your responsibility, it's your burden for you to be able to do that. And all they have to do is reference this, and you should be able to read this. It should be in plain written English, and there shouldn't be anything of that's too difficult to understand. And in fact, you'll see a lot of underlines or hyperlinks, all the definitions. In fact, the very first part of it, I have graduate classes, I always require them to go through and actually really look at the definitions and understand the definitions that you have to that everything falls under. And so it's sometimes you have a few extra minutes or something, kind of go through there and kind of learn the language of federal government procurement. In addition, it's also you're required to register in SAM. You cannot bid on any federal government contract or receive a micro purchase or receive any sort of justification without having the SAM registration in place and up to date. Okay, and you have to be registered for the type of assistance that you're seeking, either the grant assistance or potentially a federal government award of some sort, contract award. Okay, and you have to maintain it and update it. A lot of times you'll get these emails from, I'm calling them scam artists, but whatever. They basically tell you you're going to expire, or you're going to be thrown out, or you're not going to be able to do business. Well, to some extent that's true, but you got to go in there. It's kind of like a purge system every year. You got to basically tap into it, log in, say you're still around, and that everything's okay. And you want to do that before you expire, technically. But when you do expire, all you do is become inactive, and you can find yourself. I'll show you how to find yourself in just a minute, and then update that. There's about 1,200 of you every single day go in and say, hey, I want to do business with the federal government. And at the end of the year, about 800 of you basically go away, and your business not there anymore. And so they got to keep that fresh and purge it routinely. So you don't want to get purged, and you want to keep that up to date. But it does stay there for you to find yourself and get, if you do find yourself inactive, just like at your Secretary of State's office when you're being registered to actually do business. Sometimes that'll happen, and you have to go back in there and just update yourself. Okay, and so I'm going to show you how to do that today. It is a system where you can go in and log in and authenticate yourself. It's secure at this point, and you're doing double authentication, making sure you have that ready to go. And I've saved some screenshots, but whenever I jump into it, just a minute, I'm going to actually already be logged in here. You, of course, are really only looking at your system. And others are not supposed to get into your system or log into your system. So be aware of that. It's tracked IP addresses and so forth. And so that's important that you maintain those rules. You should be the only one logging into your SAM account. The screens themselves have actually changed. It changes frequently as they continue to update. We've been moving for this. I've been around long enough to see 3 iterations of the federal system, and this is not one of my favorite, but they're doing a good job. At the end of the day, they're merging a lot of systems together, and so you see it changing constantly. But always remember that when you're looking, I'll show you this in your dashboard. You always want to be in that first box. Number 1, active registration. If you find yourself in any of these other circles, you're in a sandbox, and you don't want to be there, and you want to get out of it as quickly as you can. Okay, and when you register, there's going to be steps. I've got some screenshots here showing my individual registration and how I'm registered. But I always want to go through. You want to make sure you're all awards. Typically, if you're doing government contracting, and you're going through and you're choosing that, one of the pitfalls I find a lot of times is they'll ask you as you're registering, well, if you're a federal agency or not, and a lot of times some folks tend to read that as do you want to do business with the federal government, because there's 2 questions sort of similar there, and so you want to make sure you don't accidentally check that you are a federal agency, because it is the same systems that federal governments use and to register so that they have one portal. And if you do select that, it's you can really kind of go into the never land and it's hard to get out of there, and you don't want to have that happen. And so make sure you pay attention to each of those questions. In addition, as you're going through there, you're making specific representations and certifications. It's called reps and certs. And here, see, here's the one that says, I want to do business directly with the federal government. Okay, make sure it says that. But when you make these representations and certifications, understand that the government's relying on that information. So you say you got a bank account, you better have a bank account. You say that you know that you're not doing one thing and they ask you about it, you better not be doing that thing. So don't gloss over that too quickly, because oftentimes when we're going through any other registration, or sometimes we're just checking off and say, yeah, we comply. Make sure you comply because they have to rely on that. And if you don't, and you want to find yourself bidding on a contract and then figure out, hey, I really did have to have an affirmative action plan and I don't have it. And therefore misstated that and I'm going to lose my contract that I had. Okay. And not all of us are required to have that. So you got to read through in the details to understand that and in that process. Okay. And so I'll show you some screenshots just to show that it is a step through method in order to get you there until you get to this point where you actually are registering your agency. And know that your Small Business Administration overlay, it bills from the SAM registration, and you tell it whether or not you want to be listed in the Small Business Administration website, the Dynamic Small Business Search System, and you can go now and directly in that system and update your account afterwards. So you want to make sure your capability statement's set up correctly within the SBA system so that the governments, when they actually go in and search you, that they can find you. Okay, and so that's important. And I'll step into that too. Registration finally submitted, get that confirmation, then you're going to receive an email from them. Watch for that email. It's going to be time sensitive. Make sure it doesn't go to your any sort of spam folder, because you're going to have to reply back to that. And it's important that you do that in a timely basis, usually within a 24 to 48 hour period when if they ask you for something. In addition, you may also start receiving some of these other organizational emails that kind of sound like they're with the government. SAM registration system or something like that, .com, but that's what you'll see, a .com or .net. If it doesn't say .mil military or .gov government, then you don't have to respond to it. Okay, and so that, and it's very rare for the federal government to reach out to you unless there's a specific question, and doing that. And so in here you'll see this actual email here, and it says do not reply at sam.gov. Okay, so they'll tell you how to actually go in, and that means you've been successfully registered. So let me just jump over here to SAM and just show you kind of quickly how the system itself works. Now, when you first come to SAM, it's going to look a little bit different. I'm actually in the search mechanism itself. So I'm going to do some tests. I'm going to show you how to do some tests to make sure that you're set up correctly. That's your primary page here for any time you want to do business with the federal government is there. Just to say that anything in the SAM system is in GovDirections and RFP delivery, so that you're aware of that. We have a direct API. It's listed there. We pick up on it right away. And so know that. And the primary difference is that the federal government doesn't include any kind of state and local government contracting, subcontracting. So it's only SAM listing. So it has to be a federal government agency seeking out your information. Okay. State and local governments also have their own portals, if at all. And so they're individually, some, at the end of the day, really some 140,000 different locations that you'll find listings. All of these are in rfpdelivery.com. So every SAM listing's there, every state listing's there. So that's the kind of the difference. That's why we serve a business purpose. We provide that aggregation for you. This also includes other information. For example, beyond just the contract opportunities, also includes contract data from the former FPDS system, and basically a data system that provides previous awards, also forecasting, wage determinations, letters that are there, the federal hierarchy itself, how does it work, how are the departments, how are the sub-tiers, who are you actually contracting with when you actually contract. Come to understand that. Don't spend a lot of time on it, but you kind of do need to understand your customer and how they flow. We follow that for you. Assistance listing, this is more the grants that potentially would be available. Entity information, this is information about your company. Once you register, it's available there, or local other types of agencies. The disaster response registry, you want to make sure that you accept that. There's a lot of money that flows through on disasters, and you have to be in this registry in order to qualify for a contract opportunity under that. And then you have exclusions and also any kind of responsibility. So you don't want to get on that exclusions list. Okay. And then This also was referred to formerly as FAPI, as system, okay? And it's all been merged together. And then entity reporting, also available there, and I have that information. It has some really useful tools here, some videos, and you can step into it. You do a very good job now. And if you ever get into a situation where you need some help, after you're logged in, the customer service actually is very responsive, and they'll help you, but you need to be logged in whenever you seek out that assistance, and then it's tied to your account, and they'll receive that back to you. Okay. Now, in your account, over at the very top here, you're going to find, first of all, they're going to give you some alerts whenever they have any kind of issue at play, and so you want to make sure you read that. They also want to always remind you this is 100% free. You'd be surprised at the number of calls I get where people have been duped out of $500 or $499 to register, $500. It's completely free. By the time you give information to anybody else, you could have already registered yourself. In addition, sometimes there's folks will say they'll get emails say, oh, you got to update this or update that. The government itself won't send you that notification. You can always add to it and supplement, but the primary thing you need to get is your UEI and your cage code. Okay, once you get that, and let's say that you register for all awards, then you're good to go. Okay, everything else they can add value, and you may want to do that as I step into it. I'll show you some of that. Okay, with that said, did I already log out? Oh, goodness, good. No, I'm still logged in. Okay, and here I get too many windows open. Okay, you always typically go to your workspace. Your workspace is going to give you basic information, and I'm not going to get too far in this because it gives some private information for my own company. But you're here, always there for your active registration, gives you details associated with that. Okay, and that one thing I always do like to point out is that sometimes the government now will ask you for your reps and certs. When you go into your active registration, you step over here, and if you find your company, like I just found mine, whenever I drill into it, it's going to give me some details. Oh, sorry, went to the wrong one. There we go, back up. Over here on the three little dots now, constantly is moving. I've been in this system for decades, so it's always interesting with that. I can view my record here, okay? And then as I step into it, I can go in, and on the left-hand side, there's an area called Reps and Certs. This has to do with FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations, and DFARS, Defense, okay? And here, when I click that, it's going to allow me to go in and choose which one I like, and then I can potentially download my reps and certs. These are the things that you've agreed to with the federal government, and whenever you went through. And instead of you having to constantly do that, some officers allow you to just download that and send it to them, and then you have access to that. So I like to point that out in case you ever really are trying to find that, you know where to go to find it. Okay, and that there. Whenever you get over here, you can actually search your company. And find your company here or find others. I can go in. I could, for example, when I am logged in, I can look at potential competition that I'm looking at, or even potentially somebody I'm thinking about working with. I can find them here. Oops, sorry. I think I may not be searching the right. Just 1 second. There we go. Okay, so you notice I didn't have the comma in the first one. Got to be exact when you do the register search. Very important. Same thing when you register. If you don't have exactly the way you set yourself up with your Secretary of State's office, then you can find yourself in a quandary, and you don't want to find yourself there. So take a look at that and make sure if you have a comma somewhere that you put your comma in there and you use it the same way. These are things that can get you once again put out there in that stage of waiting, and you don't want to be there in there. But when you do log in, make sure that your UEIs here, your cage code. If you're looking at a competitor, you can see their information, but also that you have purpose of all awards here, registration, and then that your expiration date is here. Now, if I had been expired and I was looking for expired companies, all I have to do, not technically expired, you're just inactive, and then I just open that up as inactive, and I would find myself there, okay? And then I can go in and update myself and reactivate myself. It's not so complicated to do. It's not the end of the world at all by any means. Your data is all still there, and you just need to go up there and update it. Okay. Now, one thing I like to do whenever we actually take a look at this, take a look at my SAM registration, is I like for you to do what I refer to as an IVL test. This is the interested vendors list. It's a new feature that they've started adding. It's not always there. And so I want to make sure that you want to test to make sure it's there for you. And one of the ways I do that with my customers and members, clients that I work with personally, is I go in and I do a keyword search. Okay, just just do transportation to begin with. The very first one here, I'll just click on it, take a look at it with them. And my system's set up right, so I know how to do this. But over here on the left-hand side under award notices, okay, there's an option for interested vendors list. It's not on every bid. More and more, you're finding that the contracting officer is allowing you to come in and say that you're interested so that they know that and they can reach out to you. A lot of times when we go in and actually submit an inquiry into someone, okay, and they'll give us an inquiry, we never hear back from them, because they get a lot of inquiries. But if you go in and you add yourself to the interested vendors list, then that's going to give them a specific notification that you really have an interest in this, and your company will pop up there, all the details about your company, and that gives the officer abilities to find more information about you. Okay, and I just added myself to the list, and that sends a note to them that I'm interested. It also gives you an opportunity to come in and see others that might be interested, and you have that. Okay, and when you decide you're not interested, just go back in and confirm to remove yourself from that, so that you don't have to. You also should have the ability to follow. Okay, now I'll just point out, if you don't see this under this particular one there, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that in for those of you who are logged in right now. I'm going to use this as an option. Okay, and as the test. And you can go in there and you can click on that. If you are logged in and you see the interested vendors list, then your role is correct and you're good to go. You don't want to be in the last minute trying to respond to something and then have to get this approved. It's a function of your role, okay? And there's instructions on what you have to do that. A lot of times as small business owners, we come in and just set ourselves as the admin and don't give ourselves the right roles. Or vice versa. Whereas big companies or larger companies have multiple individuals in their account and they're assigning those roles, and so they're really forced to. So if you're a small company, you need to make sure you got it set up correctly. It's not that complicated, but it can take you a little bit of time to do that. And so I encourage you to do that test. I call it the IBL test, only because there's it's interested vendors list test. I just like to use a lot of acronyms. It's always fun when you're working with government to come up with your own. And so that's one that I've designed for you. Okay, so make sure that's there and you got that capacity, because that's going to become more important as they continue to streamline acquisition using the SAM system for federal government contracting. Okay, and so with that, those two options, I also said I wanted to go in and say, hey, how do you actually bid on something? Well, here's one. I'll just use this as an example. Okay, when you're taking a look at this, what are you looking at? First of all, you're looking at the title. Okay, so they're looking for the engineering professionals in the southeastern area. It looks like, I don't know, there's New York too. So there's service districts. Okay, it's active. You always want to make sure the bid's active, because sometimes when you register, you search, you'll find bids that have been awarded already and they're listed there for a while, and they're no longer active. Okay, and so you go through all the trouble. You don't really figure that out until you actually start to do something with that. Okay, one thing I like to do when I actually first come to an actual bid, I take over here to the left and I take a look over here at the contract history. Okay, click on the history. See if there's any other documents that are out there. This one only has one document, the actual solicitation. Okay, this is also going to tell you the stage of it. Sometimes it's pre-solicitation, means it's coming. Sometimes it's combined synopsis solicitation. That means it's streamlined acquisition happening quick. And then sometimes it's solicitation, which is basically an active RFP, gives you a little time to respond. They know it's going to take you some time. Other times it's source of SALT, basically looking to see if there's a marketplace for them to actually deal with. And other times it's a justification or special notice that they've already made a decision and they're making you aware of that, unless in case you want to protest it. Okay. Whenever you then step into it, always call attention to the Apex. They actually provide excellent services that are out there. If you have an interest in someone helping you maybe get yourself certified with SBA, this is a great tool to go to. They don't always have all the bids, mainly focused in on the federal, but if you help them with certification, that's a great place to go help get that free help. Most times it's free. Okay, and you can find yours by looking in there. Here, general information. It'll always tell you the type. It also tells you the due date. Here is your due date. Okay, this one here is solicitation, so they're going to give you a 30, 40 days. Okay, always take time to as they give it to you. If they give you time, 30, 60 days, take the full time before you actually submit a proposal. There might be some addendums or amendments to it. Okay. If it's a streamlined combined synopsis, it sometimes can be very quick. So they issue the bid, 25th, it's due February 1st. You're expected on those to be ready to go, have everything organized. You have your document, your folders in the right places. We help you with that in our services. If you have an interest in that, getting that ready, RFP ready, you can reach out to Dale. She can talk to you about that. And this here gives you the inactive date. So this is going to be issued, awarded. Basically, you got to respond by that date, and then they're going to drop it out of the SAM system at that point. And so at that point, they're probably going to be at a stage where they're either going through negotiations or awarding the actual contract. Okay, classification. Here's where they're going to tell you whether or not it's a set aside of some sort. Okay, set asides at the federal government level, meaning only those companies that meet this specification or certification can actually bid. Okay, you also have to, it's tied to your NAICS code. So not only do you have to have this certification, but you also have to have this NAICS code assigned to your account. If you don't, then immediately you need to update your SAM registration and make sure you do. Okay, and then you would qualify for that. Now, total small business is the primary set aside option. This is typically based on either gross receipts or number of employees. Most of us tend to qualify for that, but you do have to double check that. Okay, other certifications that potentially they're service disabled, woman-owned small businesses. They're different qualifications, and you have to go through and actually get a letter of certification for that. Okay, in that process, they also will tell you the PSC code. Not all bids have PSC codes, okay? And then not all bids are assigned NAICS codes. NAICS codes are human system, North American Industry Classification System. And so it could be multiple different ones that they choose to actually use with that. And the officer could potentially use, they can slide a 1 year and add a 541331. You don't have that particular NAICS code assigned, then you're not going to be notified about it, first of all. And the second, you can't actually bid on this, so you have to go back in there and update that. Okay, they're always going to tell you where the work's going to be performed there, and then they're going to give you a short synopsis or a description. Okay, and this information is here. They're looking for civil engineers, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. Okay, giving you some details. Okay, yes, sir. Question?
No, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm going to put that on mute. Okay, thanks, Claude. Okay, and so as you get in there, you can actually go in, and I always want to make sure I've got all the documents. So I go ahead and click download and then download the documents localized. Okay, you can do it one by one. But whenever I do this, I always go back into the last one first. Okay, the attachment, because it could change. It looks like they probably changed the statement of work. And so I want to see what I'm actually looking at. So I always do the last one first and then step back in my rule. Okay, and so I'm going to open up this document here. So I'm going to show you what one looks like. Most of them are more or less the same. Okay. And I'm going to open this. I opened this up on Adobe, so I'm going to have to switch my windows here. Okay. Okay, so here's the solicitation. Now it looks a little bit different. It looks like a more normal solicitation that you might be pursuing. Okay, and so they're going to give you, some graphics and images, and this is the attachment. So this is the latest one, and then I'm also going to look at the SIR document, and this is going to be a more formalized, typical form that you're going to have to comply with. And just quickly, I'll go over this, but I'm going to focus more on that solicitation itself. But it's going to give you some basic information in a standardized document. It's important that you understand the procurement officer's primary objective is to make sure you're all treated equally and fairly. And so all the information is presented to you in a uniform way. And this document's used for that. This is going to be a negotiated bid. And so they tell you that up front. So it's not going to be a low bid or a sealed bid of any sort. And so you have that. Always pay attention to the requisition number. And that's always helpful, or the solicitation number. And that's what you're going to reference to them whenever you either ask a question or you actually go back in and actually start doing some research of some sort. Okay. In your document, this one here, this particular form is there. It's going to have ability to actually bid on it. Okay, and it's going to give you some key information, such as when you actually have to respond back by, and then also all the documents that you have to have attached to it. And this is more of a sort of a request for proposal or special notice kind of document as a true invitation to bid. They might use more standard other types of forms. This is a little bit different than what you almost always all the other ones that you potentially would look at. Okay, lose my words here. They also will let you know where you need to actually bid. Start putting information in, and your name and your address here, your code. A lot of times, people get messed up. This is your UEI. You'll put that in there, and if you have a multiple locations, you'll have potentially facility codes. Put there your name and your address there, your title of individuals. You're going to sign it, and then you will have your basic information that you're responding to. This is going to be a multi-year bid. And so they're going to want you to step in and actually plug in your numbers onto this form. And as you read through here, they're going to give you your contract requirements. And while you can read through everything and make sure you're fully aware of it, know that when you read one of them, a lot of it's the same thing over and over again. And they're going to explain to you how to go that. And this is a document they use for multiple purposes. A lot of times they go through and they check off what the ones that you really need to have to pay attention to. But then what I'm going to do is, after I step through this and just give a casual glance, always making sure that it's something I want to actually bid on before I get too involved with it. But I'm going to go through that statement of work or this attachment and really look at what they actually want. Okay. One thing you'll notice a lot of the videos I do is that whenever I read this part of the information, I'm always going to jump into, I want to know the background and everything, but I'm looking at that scope of work. Okay. This is really the most important part, I think. And if this scope of work doesn't speak to you, it doesn't really sing in the back of your head, this is the bid I wanted to find, like Coldplay song. This is the one I wanted to find. Move on. Okay. We're in a $7 trillion marketplace right now. There's going to be other opportunity for you. You don't need to spend a lot of time on something that doesn't really fit your wheelhouse. That's not something that you need to do anymore. Okay. And so make sure it does fit. If it does fit, then step in and actually start looking back. And then, might actually at that point step back and read that introduction, understand what really prompted them to actually get into this. Because, the important thing to remember about a request for proposal specifically is that, they've got a business problem that they're trying to deal with, and they want you as a subject matter expert. That whole theory of the firm, why we contract with each other. You've got some sort of expertise they're looking for. You need to understand why they're looking. Okay. And so you get a little bit more about that background and details that got them to this point, but then focus on that scope. This is what they expect you to do. They don't expect you to do anything that's not listed here or not spoke about here. Okay. Understand that. You don't need to give them a whole world approach or a whole, you got to give them an approach just to speaks to what they're actually seeking you to do. That's your responsibility. Initially, it's the government's responsibility to be accurate, brief, and clear. Okay. The ABCs. When you respond, that becomes your burden, but initially it's their burden. Okay. So it's important that you only are expected to respond to what they tell you to respond to. Okay. So they're going to give you some details. They're going to start giving you some indicators. Okay. A lot of times I call these indicators of success. Some things I might see in there that will speak to me. The geographic location. Hey, I'm in Atlanta. Hey, it's a good potential opportunity for me because I match up in geographic. It's going to save me some cost. I don't have to go everywhere. Okay. And things like that. Okay. Or size of organization. This actually is size of organization too big for me, so I'm not going to bid on, but potentially, or type of engineering, or who's going to be the decision maker, what the contracting officer, and so forth. They'll give you some details in the specs that you can start building those. And so when you see those over and over again, then hey, if this is there, I got a high degree of success, and I'm going to win this contract. And you start focusing really on that as a part of your decision making capacity and how you're going to actually to respond to them. And as I read through this, I'm going to pick up on some of that information and I'm going to start gathering that. I'm probably going, once I get past that scope of work, I'm going to look at everything that I see at once. Okay. I'm not going to piecemeal this. I'm going to go ahead and just read through it. Try not to get stirred, give yourself some time. Usually I look at these even in times about potential business opportunity that I'm thinking about in the future. Okay. And then I deal with the actual performance of the work and getting it pulled together maybe in regular business hours. But need time to think. When is your best time to think? You email me at 4 a.m. Sometimes you see I'm responding. That's because that's my best time to actually think. And in my quiet time, I'm actually getting into it and I'm looking at what I really want to pursue. And going into the details, and you see they always give you some really good information about that. Now, the federal government in their actual proposals, they're going to actually tell you how to respond. Okay. In a local government, they're going to have you maybe a format of proposal, something like that. And then they're going to say, hey, we want you to do these various specific provide this particular information back to us. Okay. And the federal government's going to do the same thing in the actual form itself that we just glanced over to begin with. And they're going to tell you that they're going to want most likely a technical proposal, and they're going to want to know your performance, and you're going to have to outline that what you're going to find in each business interest that you have, that the information that they seek back and the way that they ask for you back, it's almost always the same. So get those templates ready to go. Okay. So you're not always reinventing the wheel, that you're getting answers. And so sometimes it's slightly different, like the insurance requirements on this one might be slightly different in another one. Okay. And this one actually is pretty low. Okay. So most times it's 1 million to 5 million. You see sometimes 5 million, 10 million. So you have a different answer for that ready to go in your document folder. And then it'll save you some time. But you'll see the same questions that they'll look for in your proposal back to them over and over and over again. Okay. And so be aware of that. So it may look daunting the very first time you come to it. The second time it gets a little bit easier, and the third time it's simple. Okay. That's one reason why in our RFP writing courses that I teach, the experiential learning process, I designed to get you out of it in 3 months, because you really are learning everything you need to know in that 2 to 3 month period. And you should, at that point, you're winning contracts, and you should be out there on your own. You got those training wheels off, and you're going. Okay. And so you'll see here the documents, what they're going to actually ask for you. Okay. Get to that point, and they're going to really lay it out. Okay. And then here, once again, those representations and certifications I showed you earlier, they're rehashing them there, and you're just going to say, yes, I agree to them. Okay. They're going to give you the instructions. This is what I'm really going to, and how you actually can bid on this and provide that, and how they're going to treat you as a whole. Okay. And so this document, I think I'm almost close to the end, and here to get to the point, the final thing is what is going to be in your proposal. Okay. Here, they want a cover letter. They want your signed solicitation. That's the beginning part we saw. They want you to talk about supplies, price, representations, and search. You're going to attach that document that we looked at, we downloaded from the federal site or SAM. They're going to want you to put your resumes in there. Okay. They're going to want you to do a hiring plan, and that's it. Okay. And then they're going to say, hey, you know what? Once you get that done, here's how we're going to evaluate you. And you know what? The first thing I just started a new semester teaching. And the first question they always ask is, how am I going to get the A, Mr. Knowles? And I'm saying, here's how I'm going to give you an A. And you know what they do from that point forward? They focus on just that. They don't really focus on learning anymore. And that's kind of, to be honest with you, that's, really how this kind of goes through. Now your focus is on winning the contract. It's not even really at winning at this point on the RFP. Maybe the invitation to bid when it's a low price, you go for the win. Here, you go for getting past the contract, and the procurement officer is there to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. Okay, so you got to pay attention. Now, when you get in the door, because this was a negotiated offer, then you get into the process of actually winning the contract. Okay, they're going to narrow you down to 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 or 5, and then they're going to negotiate with you. So understand that going into it. You don't have to give your best price at something at this point. You only have to get past them. Okay, past that officer is making sure that you meet all the criteria they have laid out. And so understand your audience whenever you're responding to them. Okay. So here's your evaluation criteria. The first one, they're going to just basically give you a pass fail, that you got to go or no go. You got to hold a bachelor's degree. You got that, you get that. Okay. And then here they're making some judgment calls here. And so if they're telling you got to have a minimum 5 years experience to get this, okay, in these particular areas, well, you need to really focus in on that, figure out how you can give them an answer that satisfies this. Oftentimes, when we first start, I don't have that in my own company. Okay, I just started my company, and it's brand new, but I do have 30 years experience in working with government contracting, and so I'll build that in. I may explain that, or my references that I put in place here. I will explain that. So here's a reference from a prior employer, but it's still that's from doing this work for 20 years. Sell your story. Nobody's going to sell you like you sell yourself. Okay. And that's important when you explain your capabilities, that you really give them that information. So everything, whenever you give answers, give it in a descriptive way, not just for example, when they ask for references, a lot of times I just say name, number, and phone number to call them, kind of depending on them to get the answer. No, don't do that. Okay. Give them a story about your reference. Say, hey, here's my reference. And that's just the reason why, is because I did this great project for them, and I gave them a solution to this business problem that they were seeking. I helped them out over about a 4-month period. I was paid this amount of money, and they did, and it was a successful project. Here, call them. Here's a number. Here's how to get in touch with them. Make sure that's all accurate, but give them a story. Okay. And that's important, unless you find yourself in a situation where they're actually framing it in such a way you can only put that data in there. Okay. Which is very rare, in fact. but have that ready to go. Okay. And also always in your cover letter, in that second paragraph, take the opportunity to tell your best story. Okay. And say, hey, this is really what I did. This is what I did this project. And wow, I wowed everybody who was in that, who hired me. And this is the kind of thing you talk about at your dinner party, and you're bragging about yourself a little bit. And, we all got to do that. And it's important that you do sell yourself the right way. Okay. Nobody's going to speak to your capabilities better than you can speak to them. That's pretty much it. That's how you go about winning and bidding on a government contract. And so with that, I'll stop, and I'm actually going to stop the recording at this point on live on YouTube, give you a little bit of flexibility so that you can come and ask questions that aren't stored permanently on the internet.